This video is not sponsored by EA Game Changers. EA has blacklisted me. For whatever reason, there's this perception out there that I dislike Anthem and I desperately want it to fail. This really couldn't be further from the truth. I dislike EA and desperately want them to fail, but I like BioWare more than I dislike EA, so for that reason I've been cheering for Anthem since the moment it was announced. BioWare is a very special studio that has produced some of my favourite games ever, and if the success of this game allows them to go on and continue the stories of Mass Effect and Dragon Age and, I don't know, Baldur's Gate, Jade Empire, whatever, then I'm totally down for that. But separate from all of that, looter shooters are totally my jam. I am a hopeless fanboy for Destiny, Warframe, and The Division, the three defining looter shooters of this generation, since Borderlands has so far sat this one out. This genre, more than any other, is how I like to spend my time, so I'm hopeful that Anthem eventually blossoms into a fine addition to that genre. I say eventually for three reasons. Firstly, it's clear that Anthem's endgame content at launch will be fairly anemic, so Anthem can't be the sort of game that immediately becomes your go-to hobby. Secondly, the technical state of the recent demos is really shabby, especially on the PC side, and I worry that we're in for a very bumpy launch. Finally, I hold grave concerns for the way this game will be monetized, and EA's efforts to hide this game's economy during the demo, and their unwillingness to provide clarity on things like pricing, or how long it will take to earn in-game currency. These things lead me to believe that there isn't a good news story waiting on the other side of all of this. My hope is that Anthem will be a terrific game someday, because from what I've seen, many of the right ingredients are there. I've really enjoyed what I've already played, and this could be awesome, but I think it's wise to hold off on the purchase decision until some things are fixed, until some things are added, and some important questions are answered. So let's break all that down. I fucking loved what I've played of Anthem so far. I get why people think it's generic, boring, and repetitive, but you could apply those labels to any looter shooter game. For me, Anthem pulls parts from all of my favourite looter games and combines them in a way that feels fresh and interesting. I played hundreds of hours of Destiny and Warframe and The Division, but Anthem doesn't feel like any of those because it's sort of all of them, and yet because of that, it's none of them. I'll explain. Firstly, the flying is everything I would have hoped it would be. Traversal is such an important part of most games, and barring some truly horrendous PC controls which will hopefully get fixed, it just feels amazing to fly through the missions, through strongholds, through the open worlds. I've not yet gotten tired of the sense of looking up and thinking, yeah, I want to go there, and with a press of a button, I'm off. One of the biggest reasons I love Destiny is because it just feels good to pull the trigger in Destiny. The moment when you load up the game and fire that first shot, you immediately feel like, yeah, that's the stuff. Anthem doesn't have that feeling with its shooting, but I think it could achieve that with its flying eventually. The shooting in Anthem, yeah, it kind of sucks. In fact, it really sucks. There's a lot of reasons for this. Audio design is pretty poor, weapon feedback just isn't there. The weapon design is also just so generic that you really struggle to tell them apart, but mainly it's because of what a lot of people would call bullet sponge enemies. Now this term gets thrown around a lot by people who don't really understand how looter games work, but for a looter to exist, there has to be loot that makes you more powerful as you collect it. That therefore necessitates the existence of enemies who are too strong for you to comfortably kill until you collect that loot. Hence, they'll feel like bullet sponges. When you get the required loot, you can kill them faster and things start to feel good again. I will say though that Anthem's enemies feel even more bullet spongy than usual, and shooting them feels particularly unsatisfying because Anthem's damage model is based around abilities, not shooting. Your abilities are very powerful and on very short cooldowns. This is how you're meant to be dealing your damage, and this is why shooting things in Anthem feels kind of shitty and unrewarding. I'm fine with it because I'm interested to see how a damage model like that could work, but I really understand how a lot of people could really hate the shooting in this game and it would be enough to turn them off. When it comes to things like abilities, class design, and itemization, I really can't offer any judgment on this except to say that I'm very intrigued by what I've seen, and I'm really interested to see more. As much as I love Destiny, its gear game is total shit, with almost no scope for interesting itemization and build diversity. As much as I love Warframe, its gear game is extraordinarily complex and almost impenetrable for casual players to understand. Anthem seems to be striking an interesting balance so far, with a suite of abilities and items that result in meaningful build diversity, presented in a way that's immediately understood by the player. The possibility for group synergy with the whole combo and detonator system is particularly appealing, but I won't say any more on all of this stuff because to truly pass any meaningful judgment, you need to spend a few weeks with a system like this. I'll be doing that when I review the game. As much as I've enjoyed the gameplay, I really worry about Anthem's story. So far, it looks pretty terrible. The first-person perspective thing kind of isn't working for me, and the dialogue options I have are just totally pointless.
Well, since you love running into that kind of stuff, you better be careful.
That's what a good javelin's for. And why get an expert for the once-over?
It feels like I'm just offering up some non-offensive platitudes to punctuate the monologues of the characters I'm talking to. In-mission storytelling is similarly uninspired so far, with most of it just revolving around the familiar, "Hey, I can find the answers in that data terminal, hold this position while I hack into it." I'd be stunned if we were to get a great BioWare quality story out of this game, but it's absolutely too early to pass judgment one way or the other. My early vibe on it though is that if you're looking for a compelling BioWare narrative, you are unlikely to find it here. Despite this, high-level impressions, as I said, I loved it. I just did. It was just fun for me in the ways that I like these games to be fun. I don't know if that fun is going to last beyond the campaign, but so far I'm looking forward to playing more on release, so that's got to count for at least something. Still, my bar for a game like this is a lot lower than I think a lot of other people's bar is, particularly as it relates to the endgame. 2 days ago, it was confirmed that Anthem's endgame will consist of the following: 3 strongholds, one of which was available during the demo, legendary contracts, which are multi-step daily quests that reward high-end gear, you can do one of those per day, and free roam in the open world where you can just do shit and fight world bosses. That's it. Now, here is where we get into a very complex discussion about what it means to buy into a live service game. In addition to the above, BioWare have said that we can expect seasonal events called cataclysms, which sort of change parts of the open world map and potentially some of the missions and stuff. I'm not sure. And in the future, we're also going to see Shaper Storms, which you might recall from the end of the Anthem reveal trailer. No one has any clue what these are yet. I'll make the very important point that all of this additional content will be free when it arrives, and Anthem plans to monetize through the sale of in-game cosmetics. We will come back to that point later. My big concern with the live service model of games like this is that we have absolutely no idea whatsoever what this content will be like when it arrives. It could be incredible, or it could be utter garbage. I've seen great DLC drops in games like The Division, where they added their survival battle royale mode, but this was a paid DLC. I've seen terrible updates in games like Destiny, where they added the Festival of the Cost, an event that was free but was designed to sell as many microtransactions as possible, with very little actual content to show for it. My point is that we simply don't know what the future holds for the endgame, so any effort to justify the purchase of Anthem on the basis of its future content offerings is just silly. What we know now is that there isn't going to be much of an endgame at launch. Just 3 strongholds, one of which we've already played, a repeatable mission once per day, and free roam. Now, for me personally, I'm actually okay with this, because every single looter shooter has launched without an endgame, and most of them end up in a pretty good place. I think the goal of Anthem at launch is to deliver me a good 50 to 60 hours of enjoyable play and build a strong foundation for the future. If it does that, then I've got my money's worth, and I'll put down the game and look forward to coming back to it when new content is added. For many others though, particularly those that want to make Anthem their hobby immediately and use it to replace something like Destiny or Warframe or World of Warcraft, this news is going to be very disappointing. To those people, I would simply say that the games you're comparing Anthem to, they've been around for many more years, and they've had time to build their endgames. Give Anthem the same chance to do that, and hopefully you'll enjoy it when it eventually arrives. And this brings me back to my initial point at the start of this video. There is a lack of endgame content at launch, and the future content plan is totally unknown at this point. For this reason, I don't think you're missing out on anything if you delay your Anthem purchase until some more content is added and the content roadmap becomes clearer. It's all going to be waiting for you at some point, and it will be supported by better technical performance, because right now, the technicals are arse. I've tested Anthem on the PS4 Pro, the Xbox One X, a PC with an RTX 2080 Ti, and another PC with an RTX 2060, which was recently sent to me by Nvidia. On none of these machines could I get a stable frame rate. The console versions of the game in particular are extremely concerning, with the Xbox One X frame rate looking like a slideshow at times. Digital Foundry have done an excellent analysis on console performance, and their key takeaway is that things are looking really bad. BioWare has issued a statement saying they've improved optimization across all platforms in the release build of the game, but I could not care less what any company says to me about performance. I learned that lesson with Fallout 76. Until I see it in action, I'm going to assume that Anthem will launch in this very unoptimized state, and I think you should too. Beyond frame rate, it's very clear that the game has received a significant downgrade versus what was revealed at E3. I find this frustrating given that BioWare swore that there would be no downgrade. It's a tale as old as time, but it still pisses me off every time it happens. For what it's worth, Anthem is still a very pretty game to look at, but it's clearly not what was promised to us, and I think that's pretty shitty. More broadly, the PC port of the game is in a terrible state. I've briefly mentioned flight controls already, and yes, BioWare has said that they plan to improve those, and again, I'd caution against believing anything that they say until we see it in action on release. They really are pretty bad at this point, and given how important the sensation of flight is to this experience, this really needs to be nailed down tight. On the PC, the UI experience is truly awful, requiring you to use keys to navigate menus, ignoring the mouse scroll, and suggesting D-pad inputs during mission tooltips. There's no field of view slider, which is just awful for people who suffer from motion sickness. There's no ability to adjust your resolution. Like, you just can't do it. What the fuck? You can't even Alt-Tab out of the game without it resizing your screen and just completely fucking everything up. The menus as well are just so bad. They're badly designed and they take so long to do it. I don't understand why they've sort of built in this delay when, like, in the menus. I don't get it. You press a button and then like 3 seconds later something happens. It's like my CPU isn't keeping up with your I don't know. It's just, ugh. In addition to all of that, I've suffered multiple audio bugs and enemy animation bugs. Server performance is very, very rocky with frequent rubber banding and disconnects. There's a lot more issues here that I won't go into, but the key takeaway is that this game is coming in hot. It's nowhere near as bad as Fallout 76 was, not even in the same ballpark. But it's not great either, and I would recommend that you give Anthem a few weeks or months after launch to iron out these kinks, so that if and when you do pick it up, you can be confident that it's in a better technical state than it is now. That is, so long as the whole microtransactions thing doesn't blow up the entire game. Of all the concerns I have about Anthem's future, this is the one that worries me the most. For the past week or so, debate has been raging about the potential cost of Anthem skins, with rumours of potential $20 skins leaked on Resetra. The $20 value is based on a simple calculation on the part of the person who posted this screenshot, estimating 1 cent for every shard, which seems like a reasonable conversion and fairly in line with the way that a lot of in-game currencies are priced. It's also in line with how games like Fortnite are pricing their skins, so it doesn't seem too crazy to believe that this is where EA are looking to price things. There's been a lot of back and forth on the topic of this speculation, with many people taking the number and running with it, and many defenders of Anthem accusing these people of being alarmists. But here's what hasn't happened. At no point has EA and BioWare come out and said, guys, $20 for a skin, that's crazy. No way will we do that. We'll announce pricing soon, but it won't be that high. Relax. That statement has not happened. A few days ago, I tweeted out that EA and BioWare should just release the pricing information. If it was as consumer friendly as so many are claiming it will be, then this will be a huge PR win for Anthem. EA did not respond to that tweet. A few days later, I tweeted out about Anthem's Endgame, and funnily enough, EA did respond to that tweet. Seizing on the moment, I asked this representative directly, how much will skins be at launch? EA did not respond to that tweet either. What BioWare have said is this. One thing to keep in mind is that these don't represent final, stamped for all eternity pricing, senior systems designer Chris Smith clarified on Reddit. We are iterating on our economy design and balance almost daily, so you're seeing a snapshot of one iteration. This is why we tend not to discuss things like pricing, because it's one of those iterative things that's sure to change frequently right up until the day you play the game. This is an utterly ridiculous and contemptible statement. This is a graph representing the total timeline of Anthem's development over 5 years. In that time, in excess of, let's just say $100 million was likely spent on developing and marketing and whatever else. Probably way more than that, but let's just call it $100 million for argument's sake. EA want you to believe that after 5 years in development and over $100 million spent, they're going to decide how much money this game generates right here in the last 2 weeks before release. This from a company that has made over $1 billion in revenue from free-to-play mobile titles. This from a company that makes around $1 billion per year from Ultimate Team loot boxes. There are few companies on the planet who have more experience and more data relating to in-game monetization and purchasing, and they want you to believe that they are going to decide on the monetization of this massive investment in the last 2 weeks before release. They have promised free DLC funded by these microtransactions, so they need to project earnings to budget for staff and development costs and marketing and all of that, and they're going to do all of that calibration in the last 2 weeks. That's utter bullshit. EA and BioWare know exactly how much they plan to charge us for this shit, and the fact that they're so reluctant to tell us is as loud an alarm bell as I can conceive of. I fully expect the worst. I know a lot of you out there feel like this doesn't affect you because A, it's just cosmetic, and B, you can earn everything anyway for free, so you don't ever need to spend money on microtransactions. The thing is, it's just cosmetic doesn't apply to a third-person looter shooter because the look of your character is a core part of the gameplay loop. Are you really going to tell me that you don't care how your javelin looks? Of course you do. It's a huge motivating factor for playing a game like this. And if the ability to make your character looks awesome is tied to money, then you can bet EA are going to dial up the grind economy to incentivize you to spend. And that's the second point. Yeah, you can earn everything for free by playing, but we don't know how long that will take. That was precisely the problem with Star Wars Battlefront 2. You could earn everything for free there too, but to force you to spend money, EA upped the grind to truly ludicrous amounts, and the whole thing just blew up in their face. You think that microtransactions don't affect you because you just won't buy them? They already affect you because EA and BioWare are tuning the earn rate of the free currency to be just low enough to get some of you to go, yeah, sure, no problem, I can grind for that, and just high enough so that some people say, fuck it, I can't be bothered, I'll just buy it with real money. You're caught in the middle of that calculation whether you like it or not. My honest to goodness hope is that I'm being paranoid here and that EA and BioWare will announce prices in advance of release that sound really fair. Maybe $3 for a skin, maybe $5 for a really special one, and the grind economy will land in a really good place so that we never feel like we're forced to spend. But I don't trust EA in the slightest, and I don't think you should either. Until this essential question is answered, until the technicals are fixed, until the endgame is fleshed out and the roadmap clear, then I think Anthem is a game that deserves our cautious optimism more than it deserves our day one money.